And before I could even get settled in the back of the van, I turned round and there was a police officer stood at the back door. After 24 hours of being in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, I decided to leave. However, for a bit of a dip, it's bloody lovely. Good morning from Switzerland. Some random small town in Switzerland. I've been here for a day and I'm already leaving. I'll go into some details later on in this video about why I'm leaving and why Switzerland this time hasn't worked out. However, there's been a few issues and I think cutting my losses and just leaving sooner rather than later is probably for the best. So I am heading towards a spot that I think I remember really well in Austria. Austria was one of the original plans anyway. So we're gonna head there and then hopefully I can tell you as to why Switzerland hasn't worked out this time, but it's been 24 hours and I'm already leaving. So, as beautiful as you are, Switzerland, you are not for me this time. Alright, apparently we just crossed into Liechtenstein, which I wasn't 100% sure if we would come this way. However, welcome to Liechtenstein. I think it's one of the smallest countries in Europe, I think. It's very small. I believe there's not much here from things that people have said, but I mean, this is pretty beautiful to be fair.
And I know it ain't no mystery, I'm going on back to bear country.
Alright, we made it to Austria. I'm currently in a lay-by. I think this is the exact lay-by that a local said to me, don't park here, drive down this road and there is an amazing place you can camp. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get the bike down and I'm gonna cycle up the track because I can't remember how far it is or how wide it is or anything like that. So I'm gonna drop the bike down, have a cycle up, have a quick recce, and then if it's good to go, we'll take the truck in.
My back is broke, my head is numb. This new generation's making me feel old and dumb. The road is dark, but I can see.
The spot is still here. However, in 4 years, the trees have grown a ridiculous amount. However, the swim spot still looks pretty good and it's super quiet. There was a big picnic type area and grill plats and stuff here, which seems to have been abandoned. But look at this.
I know I'm getting close to bear country. The city was killing me, now I know. And it was hurting, it was taking its toll.
How good is this spot? It's virtually a dead end. There's no through traffic. And you also can't really see the road from the road, if that makes sense. And then, ooh baby. Oh, it's filled up a bit more now. And then you basically come to this. So there is a bench, fire pit, and then also this little baby. It's not even that good. This place has changed in the 4 years that I've not been here. Last time I was here, none of these bushes were behind, and this pool was actually deep enough that you could jump in. However, for a bit of a dip, it's bloody lovely. Although it is absolutely freezing. Oof. I think we'll make a coffee and then we'll talk about Switzerland, because I'm sure you're wondering why, after 24 hours of being in one of the most beautiful countries in the world, I decided to leave. However, Austria, look at the state of it. Let's talk about Switzerland. I've already had coffee, I've got changed, and I've warmed up after the very cold dip that I had in that glacial river. And I guess it's probably time to tell you why, after 24 hours of being in Switzerland, I decided to leave. Originally, Switzerland wasn't even in my plans for this trip. I've been before, it's very beautiful. However, van life there is very difficult and it can be very expensive if you're by yourself. That being said, I had a message earlier in the week, and one of my friends, who is a very good mountaineer and a very good guide, said that he had some space on a trip for some 4,000 meter peaks, and I couldn't say no. However, looking at the forecast and with the recent very, very warm weather, the glaciers weren't in the best possible shape. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any formal crevasse rescue training because the climbing in Nepal is very different to what it is here in the Alps. Rightly so, Tommy decided that that wasn't the best option given the current state of the glaciers, and my plans were cancelled even though I was already in Switzerland. With those plans now cancelled, I kind of didn't really know what to do, and I didn't really want to just spend aimless days in Switzerland because, like I say, van life can be very difficult. And you can believe this to be the truth, because no more than a couple of hours into my journey into Switzerland, I parked at a lake, and before I could even get settled in the back of the van, I turned around and there was a police officer stood at the back door. Apparently you can't park on the side of the road in Switzerland, even though there was more than enough space for 2 vehicles oncoming at either side. He was very kind, he was very polite. However, the fine for parking where I parked was about £100. So I literally had got out of the truck, lifted the bike rack up, opened the back door, got in, and I was just about to make some sandwiches. And as I sat down in this very spot, there was a police officer stood at the back door. Luckily for me, I found an actual parking spot a little bit further down the road, but then that made me realize how difficult van life can be in one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I decided to leave the lake. I parked up at a popular free park for night spot that was maybe 10 minutes down the road. And I spoke to another British couple who had a very similar experience on their second night in Switzerland. Except because they had a trailer, their fine was nearly £250. Upon hearing that, I was kind of just like, this is not worth it for me. If my plans have been cancelled, then there's no point being here stressing about getting a fine or really having to think about where to park and what to do. And also, campsites are very expensive in Switzerland. So you're looking at like £40 to £80 a night, depending on the area and what region that you're in. For me, that's just too much. As I say, Switzerland wasn't really ever on the radar for this trip, and I wanted to get to Austria as soon as I could. So, we're now in Austria. Austria is cheaper, it has less people, and it is equally, if not more beautiful than Switzerland. Now, you might fucking want to take my head off for saying that, but I do truly believe that Austria is one of the most beautiful places in Europe, and because of its big brother, Switzerland, however you want to fucking call it, people often overlook it. However, the Austrian Alps are some of the most spectacular landscapes I've seen anywhere in the world. So that's it. We're in Austria, and we can continue with the original plans that we have. There's a couple of mountains that I want to climb. There's a couple of Via Ferratas that I want to do, and then I'll be heading hopefully into Slovenia for some plans and some big mountains there. Austria is a little bit more lenient with wild camping, and there are areas that you can get away with it without the risk of fines. However, if I want to stay at a campsite, then they are normal prices, they're not extortionately priced, and they're probably worth it too. The weather for the next week doesn't look the most ideal. However, there are a couple of windows whereby I can hopefully get out into the mountains and show you what Austria is really about. That's it. You're all up to date. After 24 hours, I left Switzerland. I drove straight to Austria. And if you're new here, hi, my name's Lou. I'm on a 100-day mission from the UK to Greece in my demarkable camper. We are relatively new into this journey, having only just crossed double figures. So if you're new here, please follow, please subscribe, and hopefully I can show you some beautiful places across Europe and beyond. I'll see you next time.